Well, many are calling this moment in Ferguson, Missouri, the calm before the storm. The city anxiously awaits the grand jury decision on whether police officer Darren Wilson will face charges for the shooting death of Michael Brown Jr. Angry protesters have been demanding justice for the unarmed teen since the shooting in August. Meanwhile, Missouri Governor Jay Nixon issued a state of emergency, but he hopes to avoid more violence.
Let us heal the divisions exposed by the death of Michael Brown and use this defining moment as the moment we begin to walk a different path.
Earlier, I spoke with civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who represents the family of Michael Brown. He previously represented the family of Trayvon Martin. Ben, welcome back to Arise America. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us. Let me just start by asking you, what's your gut feeling about what the grand jury decision is going to be?
Well, Debbie, if you look historically at what grand juries have done when they look at police shootings involving young people of color, they normally have come back in favor of the police. And so we have to work to change this system, because right now we have a system that's so partial to the police officers and disfavors the citizens. And certainly the way this prosecutor is doing it is something that really we believe isn't fair to the citizens. Certainly
indications would be that the officials at least strongly suspect that there will be a non-indictment, therefore the National Guard, the state of emergency, the FBI coming in, being prepared for how the public might react. But how are you preparing the family for their reaction?
Well, I did want to make a mention about the prosecutor and the way they're doing these proceedings. It's troubling when you have the local prosecutor sitting in judgment of the local police when there's an accusation of excessive force that involves a police shooting and a killing of a young person of color. The inherent conflict is, this is an officer he works with every day. He has cases over here where he's the arresting officer, the star witness, so they're trying to build up his credibility. But on this hand here, he's facing a grand jury indictment for possible murder. And so if you got the same prosecutor who's indicting him, that's going to destroy his credibility. That means they lose all these cases here. And if they don't indict him, you say, was it because they didn't want to lose the cases? It's just an inherent conflict of interest, and that's why we have to have special prosecutors come in this situation, and we really, really need to try to focus the fact that if we keep doing things the way we've always done them and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. And so people here in St. Louis and Ferguson are frustrated that they keep killing our children and nobody's held accountable.
Yeah, and that frustration has been.
Last question.
Yeah, and I'll ask it to you again. That frustration has absolutely been palpable. But I wanted to know how Leslie McSpadden, Michael Brown Sr., Michael Brown Jr.'s family are doing, and how have you prepared them for the grand jury's decision?
Well, Deborah, as any parent, they are on an emotional roller coaster. It's been 3 months now when their child was killed in such a horrific manner, and they've been having to deal with that, not being able to really grieve. They've been having to fight this very public fight for simple justice. And so it's been an emotional roller coaster. It really has taken its toll on his parents and all his family. They now get ready for this decision from the grand jury, and we are trying to have them know that it's a possibility they could indict the police officer, but then there's also a possibility that they won't indict him. So, you're relieved if they indict him to the point where you have a chance at justice. But if they don't indict him, then it's very likely they're never going to hold the killer of their child accountable. And so it's one of those things, you're either going to be very relieved or you're going to be heartbroken. And so you just try to say, please understand that it's an imperfect system, and we understand none of this is fair. It's not fair about this grand jury, the secret proceeding, when you all have so much mistrust for the local authorities and the police, and for them to have a closed secret proceeding and then just say, this is the decision, you have to live with it. That's insult on top of injury. So they're trying to do the best they can, and in that, they're still asking people to be peaceful and exercise their First Amendment rights to free speech in a constructive manner. And if they understand they're frustrated, but nobody's more frustrated than his mother and father.
I can only imagine. Ben, let me ask you about the audio tape that came out a couple of days ago, and that is the transmissions between Darren Wilson and other officers and dispatch leading up to and during the confrontation with Michael Brown Jr. We know, because of the release of those tapes, there was a full 90 seconds between the initial contact between Darren Wilson and Michael Brown Jr. and then when he was killed. What do you make of that, those audio tapes, and the knowledge that that happened in only 90 seconds?
Well, what we do know, Debbie, is because of what we hear on the audio tape, that the initial encounter that the police officer had with Michael Brown Jr. was no way connected with the incident that took place at the convenience store. And subsequent parts of that tape in no way connect anything that happened at the convenience store to why he had this interaction with Michael Brown Jr. With that being said, it is very troubling because you have to take it all in context. It's only 90 seconds, and there's some video that was released also, Debbie, that kind of brought to light was the police version of what took place accurate or not, because they said that he suffered these horrific injuries in what had to be a very brief encounter at the car with Michael Brown, and they said he had a orbital blowout fracture to his eye socket. But yet, as we look at him on the scene, walking around while Michael Brown is laying dead on the ground, you don't see him touching his eye, feeling his eye, or anything. EMS comes to the scene. He doesn't get treated by EMS at the scene, and then he goes to the police department for 2 hours, and then only after 2 hours after meeting with his supervisors and the lawyer do he decide that I'm going to the hospital. How significant could those injuries be if he waited almost 3 hours to go to the hospital?
I'm really out of time, Ben, but let me just ask you, we know that the prosecutor said he would give schools notice, a heads up before the announcement has made, as well as other public organizations. Will you get an advance heads up before the announcement is made publicly?
Yes, ma'am. We've been made aware that the family will get notice of the decision before they make it public.
All right. Well, we'll hope to talk to you after that announcement. And we wish the very best to the family. Ben Crump, thank you so much. And this is Arise America.